Hi, I'm Konstantina Kanugris, and I'm on the board of directors for the Hellenic Film Society. And we are so excited to be sharing with you our interview with Vlas and Charley Parlapanides, who are the creators and executive producers of hit anime Netflix show Blood of Zeus. You guys, your series is just amazing, and we are so happy to have you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's our pleasure. Anything for Greece, anything for Alava. And we always say with Blood of Zeus, this isn't our story, this is Greece's story. So, of course, we're happy to be here and talk, and speak with you today. We appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
So, as you both know, it is Greece's 200th year of Greek independence, celebrating that big anniversary, March 2021. And, Blood of Zeus clearly demonstrates how your Greek heritage has influenced your work. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about how your heritage may have influenced your past work throughout the years.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it's 200 years, and we all know that this is a competitive business. And I think that one thing that we've always taken comfort in is that, we have a very rich heritage, a heritage that has persevered, all these years. And it's sometimes comforting to think of that we have that DNA in us. So whenever we're facing whatever challenge it may be, professionally, personally, we know we have, and our forefathers have had this, makeup of being able to persevere and to get through the difficult times. And for us, we're very much influenced by our Greek heritage. It started when we were kids. Our mother lived in Greece and moved here with when she had a prearranged marriage with our father. They still did that then, believe it or not. It worked out pretty well. And she would tell us the Greek mythological tales. And our Yaya would tell us those tales, and those tales, they were always, engaging, and we were always fascinated by them, and we couldn't wait to hear them. And our mom very astutely would end them with a cliffhanger and told us if we were good the next day, she would give us the rest of the story. And it worked. And she was a very good storyteller in her own right. And they left a mark on us. And so when we set out to create Blood of Zeus, one of the things that we wanted to bring, or at least that we were hoping the audience would feel the awe that we felt, the excitement that we felt when we first heard those stories. And as Charlie said, it really is, it's not our story. It is the Greeks, those stories, there's a reason why they've lasted and all these years and have stood the test of time.
We stand on the shoulders of our culture, and it's such an abundance of riches, in every way. And I know we're biased, and, every Greek is very proud to be Greek. But when you look at, our culture, our philosophy, our mythology, our faith, it's just incredible. And it's kind of interesting, we were thinking about this, so much of what we've written either has to deal with mythology or faith, and even some of the things we've written that haven't gotten made yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of the kind of turmoil that our family comes from, because both sides of our family are originally ethnic Greeks from Asia Minor that escaped the burning of Smyrna. And both our Yaya Antonia and our Yaya Sophia, they had to flee for their lives. And I think that when people endure something like that, like genocide and mass, murder, I think you either turn away from God or you turn towards God. And luckily for us, they turned more towards it. And so we've always been very steeped in religion and in faith and in mythology. And then when we would go in the summers to visit Greece, and even the monastiri near our mom's Chorio, there was a face of Aphrodite like sticking out from the wall, because that's where they had just like plastered over it and built the church. And so when you would then go home and read these mythological stories, and our mom would tell us them, we've been to some of the places where these happened. And I think it just left an indelible mark on us. It just like, I think at that age we were very impressionable, and we were hooked. So I think that's why we always kind of come back to these stories. We think they're just great, and it's just about trying to get people to make them.
And they also try to explain back then why the world is the way it is. And so I think they resonate even with audiences today because people have many of the same questions. And the Greek gods themselves were flawed in many ways. And because they were God, those flaws were exaggerated. And again, they're very relatable. I think they're relatable characters. And I think that helps.
Not to go big fat Greek wedding, but you know, the Greeks basically invented superheroes. Like, when you look at the Greek gods, they were the world's first superheroes. And I think that's why people keep coming back. But there's such rich stories and amazing lessons to be learned. And I think that's why, you know, even thousands of years later, people still love Greek mythology. You know, that was something like Blood of Zeus did really well in India. And it's like, they never expected that. And I don't know if we have Alexander the Great to thank, or because they, you know, believe in, and that was their introduction to Hellenism, or because they believe in many gods. But for whatever reason, the Netflix executives were shocked that we did well there. So it's beloved all over the world. And again, it's truly an abundance of riches. And our culture is just, it's the markets left across the world is really kind of mind-boggling.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you can clearly see all of those themes clearly demonstrated through all the characters and the storylines. And I really love that theme of emotional truth that you kind of touch on in the series. I don't want to give it away, but it really is amazing how you kind of brought those values that still stay with us all these years later, that stemmed from the very beginning of what we know as Greek history. So you talked a little bit about, I mean, this was an international hit. It still is an international hit, critical and commercial success. You still have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's fantastic. And I really loved the series. I wanted to talk about the international appeal because, you know, it's interesting. The Japanese culture and the Greek culture are two distinctly unique and really beautiful cultures. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about how telling the story of Greek mythology through an anime lens came to light. Was Blood of Zeus always supposed to be an anime series? Was it animation? And how did incorporating, you know, some of the anime Japanese culture into this Greek series come to light?
You can take, you describe it better than I do, Ro, with regards to, you know, true anime and Western anime.
Listen, we've always loved, you know, Japanese animation. And truthfully, the purists, and this is maybe a little inside baseball, but for us, anime always meant two-dimensional, hand-drawn, and from Japan. And our show is 2D, so it's not CGI, you know, 360-degree computer generated. It's hand drawn, but ours is created in Texas. That's where Powerhouse Animation, our animation studio, is based, with overseas work done in South Korea. So ours isn't, you know, exactly pure anime, and we wouldn't kind of argue that with the purists. So originally, the idea that we pitched our agent is to do an anthology show like American Horror Story, where each season we take 10 episodes to tell a Greek myth. And we would start off with the story of Icarus and Daedalus. And it's this amazing story because, you know, Daedalus was this like almost Tony Stark type inventor of weapons in the ancient world. And he's accused of murder and he has to flee to Crete and he gets taken in by the Minoans. And then he builds the maze for the Minotaur. Like, it's an incredible story. And then what's great about it is that there's 3 other, you know, myths that intersect it. And so that was a story we always believed in. But, you know, as you know, when you're a writer, you are basically a freelance. You live in the gig economy. So you pitch ideas and either people buy them or they don't. And when we first kind of came up with that idea, the way a couple of the myths intersected, I told my brother, I said, you know, if you took half of this story here and you took half of this story here, that would make a really cool story. And that was basically the bones of Blood of Zeus. Now, we weren't able to sell this as a live action show, but we always kind of had this idea in our back pocket. And then we had a general meeting at Netflix with John Derderian, who's an executive we knew, and we pitched it to him as an animated show. And he's like, I love that idea. That would be amazing. And so I think we just got very lucky where it's like the first person that put peanut butter and jelly together. Like the idea of doing Greek mythology and anime, it just like we didn't know that people would love it together, but you know what? It just really worked. And we were very lucky. And we always loved the genre. And I think for Vlas and I, kind of growing up, we grew up on Saturday morning cartoons and video games. And so when we graduated, as we got older, we started to like anime. For us, it's something we feel very comfortable in. It's a form that we love. So it was just great to go from consumers to helping create a show in that space.
And it affords you the opportunity to do things, in all honesty, since that you can't do in a movie, that they're just almost too expensive to shoot. You know, we've had that background. Obviously, we did Immortals, and we know what that's like. So, you know, now there are certain parameters that you do have to work within. We were surprised by that. We thought, oh, we can just do anything. Well, you can't quite just do anything, because time is money, and so there are limitations even in anime. There's a greater pressure to make sure that the episodes and the scripts are as good as they can be, because initially when we started, we thought, oh, well, maybe it's like the Pixar, you know, model, where you can look at a sequence, look at a whole episode, and then change anything and everything you want. Well, that's not it. There's a moment after, you know, they're called thumbnails, where you have some creative input, you can move things around, but you can't literally like rip out, you know, sequences or scenes. There's only so much you can do. So the pressure to get the scripts right in on time is actually greater in this space than, say, in some of the other mediums.
And Netflix was very generous. They gave us a great budget, but it's not like Pixar, where they spend, you know, $150 million and they make the movie 3 times and they're constantly,
they show it to an audience and reshow it until you get it, you know. So no, Netflix was fantastic.
Wow. So, you know, it's March 2021. We're still in the pandemic. And, you know, you guys are talking about this, you know, animation, anime, and I'm sure, obviously, I'm sure COVID-19 affected the creation of Blood of Zeus, but maybe in a way, with it being animated, there were some positives out of that. What's it been like executive producing a show during the pandemic?
It's been interesting. One thing, though, I just want to go back to, Charlie mentioned John Dodarian, and you know, we're eternally grateful for him, you know, because he's the one that greenlit it. And at that time, it was still an original idea. It wasn't, there is an awareness, obviously, with Greek mythology, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But most often, the shows that were getting greenlit at that time were shows that had IP, that were video games, that had, you know, massive IP. Now, there is an argument that, well, mythology almost is that IP, but it was still risky. And he took that risk, and it paid off in a big way. And with regards to COVID, to be honest, we think that this is one of our mother's prayers that was answered, because it did slow down the process, but it didn't bring it to a screeching halt as it did for movies, as it did for other live action shows. Artists could still work at home. You could work remotely. And again, while things slowed down a bit and it was a challenge, it didn't cripple, you know, the process. We were able to continue to forge ahead. And so we were very blessed to be in this space at this particular time.
Yeah, we had only finished the first 3 episodes when I'll never forget, I think it was like Friday the 13th in, you know, March. And we were at actually the Powerhouse offices in an editorial bay. And we read that like Tom Hanks has COVID, and
that's
the
when
NBA
all
season,
Greeks knew. Okay,
that's
something's
true.
coming.
It always starts with Tom goes to Rita, but it's
exactly.
true.
and I remember like seeing that, like, oh wow, this is getting serious. Like this is not just like, you know, this thing that's far off in the distance.
Yeah.
And like Vlas said, it took time. Like we had to, because of the shelter and order place, we weren't allowed to go into the office. It took some time for us to kind of figure out the new workflow, but thankfully everyone kept working. And so it might have slowed us down a little bit, but thankfully, you know, animation is kind of COVID proof. And if we were just doing, you know, movies, like we know, you know, we were primarily feature writers, that business has gotten crushed. And like, I don't even, you know, there's so many people we know that there's just no work. And we feel so blessed to be working in this space.
Absolutely.
Right. So I want to go back in time a little bit. And, you know, I'm sure having Greek immigrant parents, they're super supportive, but I also want to know how they reacted when you first told them that you wanted to enter the entertainment business. Could you share a little bit more about that? And, you know, also your upbringing too, but, you know, it's unique to have Greek. There's not that many of us. So I want to, you know, kind of hear what that was like.
It's unique to be Greek in the business. It's also unique to be from New Jersey and to be in the business. And, you know, when we were growing up, we were both econ majors, and part of the reason we were econ majors, we didn't have the heart to tell our parents that, you know what, you work so hard and we're going to spend your hard-earned money on some degree that isn't a little more marketable. It just felt like the right thing to do. We didn't have the heart to tell them, like, I want to be, I don't know, more of an artistic type, majoring in a more of an artistic type of, or getting an artistic type degree. So we were econ majors. We did something that we felt was kind of, I don't know, more laudable, for lack of a better word. But I think, as far as I would, for me, I always wanted to pursue something creative. I knew in the back of my mind I wanted to do it. But, I was an econ major. I worked on Wall Street briefly. And then while, I was there, you reach a point, I think, in your life where you have to, decide, are you going to be honest with yourself, or are you going to lie to yourself? And for me, I felt like if I wasn't honest with myself, I felt as if I'd be taking this creative side and putting it in a closet and letting it suffocate. And I saw some of the people that I worked with, and some of them weren't truly happy. They were there because they were getting a decent paycheck, and they let fear kind of govern their lives a bit. And I just didn't want to go down that path. I just didn't feel like it was the right thing. So that's when I decided, okay, 2 feet, I'm going to jump into this creatively. And, when we told our parents, my dad said, I cried that day. The day you told me you're leaving, well, I cried. He was half joking, half serious, but we were blessed with beautiful parents. We were blessed with parents that were dreamers. We were blessed with parents who led by example. And so they always encourage us to follow our dreams, and I'll do the same with my children, and to listen to that inner voice, and to be true to yourself. And then once you do that, that takes you down a certain path. It's not easy. There's a ton of adversity. And there was when we were, pursuing this, because, to say that you want to be a screenwriter in New Jersey at that time was like, okay, what do you really want to do? Whereas out here in California, it's a little more accepted. So we were just blessed to have parents that were loving and supporting, and and just taught us that it's important to work hard, and you have to persevere, and if you really put your mind to it, and you're passionate about whatever it is that you're pursuing, that you'll find a way. Somehow you'll figure it out.
And truthfully, they were like very supportive, considering that we didn't know anyone in the business. We didn't know how things worked. They really just, they let us, my mom always says there's a special place in hell for people that live their lives with fear. And I believe that's true. And so they knew that we were going to work hard. Like we were, we grew up in a very immigrant family where we had like 2 or 3 side businesses. Our dad had a diner, then he had a hot dog stand on the boardwalk, and then we had a parking lot, and we all worked there, and no one got paid, but you're doing it for the family, not prodepsume. So, we can get ahead, and they want us to go to college and have opportunities that they would never have. And so they always encouraged us, and they knew that, as long as we worked hard and we gave it our all, then, everything else, you leave it to God, and that's all you can do. But thank God our parents are beautiful people, and they were very supportive. I'm sure our mom worried and prayed, more than if we would have done more traditional things. But in the end, they were proud, and they were dreamers, and they are dreamers. And in a lot of ways, we feel very blessed because we lived the American dream.
And Charlie said something about fear, and I think it's so true. And you can never give in to fear. And just what's interesting about it, I worked on Oppenheimer's foreign equity desk. That desk doesn't exist anymore. And, being an institutional sales trader, that was like kind of the path I was going down. That job doesn't even exist anymore, because now computers basically come in, and they've done a lot of what those institutional sales traders used to do, because now the margins that they used to get per trade are so much smaller. So it's just interesting in many ways too, that, all the people, everyone that I worked with no longer is in that field, because that field doesn't exist really anymore. So it's interesting how things work out.
As a young filmmaker myself, you guys touched on this a little bit, but is there any advice you'd give to young filmmakers out there, you know, given these times too, just any kinds of words of advice you could give them?
A couple things. I think that, you know, first and foremost, this has to be the only thing you want to do with your life. If you would be happy being a teacher or, you know, being a lawyer, do that, because this business is the most precarious business there is in the world. It's ups and downs. Every job that you take could be your last. Like, there's no guarantee for any kind of longevity. So if this is like the oxygen you need to breathe, then hey, go do it and give it your everything. Two, there's three things. Two, just be humble. There's a quote by Saint Paisios, because you have to learn and you have to grow. And I always believe this. And he said that no criticism should ever bother you, because either it's true and you should learn from it, or it's false and you shouldn't care. And so part of it is like, and it's like a beautiful, and I know we're not saints. We're all flawed human beings. We're not Saint Paisios. And it's, you know, as a human being, that's not easily executed, even though it's spot on. But part of it is like, we see a lot of, you know, writers where they're so precious and they can't take criticism. Like, the one thing that, you know, we pride ourselves in is that we take notes and all right, great, let us have it. And then, you know what, because what we're going to do is we're just going to keep making this script better. We're just going to keep working harder. The other thing was something that a wise older writer told us. He said, listen, there's far more talented writers than me that never made it, and there's far less talented writers that are way more successful. The key to this business is staying in the game, and so that when you get your opportunity, when the ball comes to you, you make the most of it. And so that's also just the kind of just being able to not give up and not quit. Now that will require sacrifices, and you know, it's not always easy. And I think it does help that there's two of us, to be honest, because sometimes, like, you know, we'll have bad news. Oh, a project now is dead, or a director dropped off, and you know, it's a punch in the gut. And sometimes I'm down and he'll be like, hey, come on, forget about it. Let's move on to the next thing. And sometimes he's down and I pick him up. And I do think it helps. But so you just gotta, one, this has to be the only thing you want to do. Two, you have to be willing to grow and humble yourself and take criticism and make sure you continue to grow and evolve as an artist. And then three, you gotta live a way where you can stick in it for the long haul. Because as you do this more, you just get better, in my opinion.
I agree with all those, and kind of, you know, just don't want to regurgitate that, but you have to find a way where you can't let, you know, the adversity or the moments where you fall diminish your enthusiasm. You know, that's kind of key, and it works differently for people. Some people find it through faith, yoga, you know, whatever it may be, whatever works for you. And the other thing is too, just to hone in on what you're passionate about, because we have found that when we're passionate about something, that passion is contagious and it gets other people excited about it. You can't manufacture passion, and anything that has ever, you know, passion is that one ingredient that great things come from. All great things, whether it's, you know, filmmaking, whether it's architecture, whatever it may be. So I feel it's important for you to be passionate. And the other thing is, like, not to sound morbid, but, you know, we're all going to die, and you want to be on that deathbed, and you don't want to have those regrets. You want to say, like, I gave it my all. I gave everything I had. You know, Charlie and I talk about, like we've given it our all. If we got hit by a bus, you know, we tried, we did it, we gave it our all. Like, you know, we would want that to happen because we have families and we have obligations, and our family matters very much to both of us, and being there, you know, obviously as a parent and there, you know, and a provider. But I feel like it's so important just to remember that, like, it's liberating in a way. You just want to give it your all, just go for it and be passionate. And as Charlie said, if this is the oxygen that you need, and, you know, without it you're gonna die, then don't let anyone dissuade you. Don't let anyone, not for a second. If it isn't, then yeah, do something else, because it's too hard. But if it is, then, you know, there's so many naysayers out there. There's few people that are in the arena, and you will find a way to do it. You will figure it out, you know, with hard work and, you know, even a little bit of talent, you'll figure it out.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. So what's next for you both? I hear there's a season 2, Blood of Zeus. What's next?
That's what's next. You know,
Okay.
that's you know, we take great pride in trying to make, you know, the series as try to make it the best series we can make it. So that's really the priority now. And Charlie and I too, we're obsessive, and we're always thinking, and we're always throwing ideas at each other. We're always reading. We believe in research, and you're just always thinking about the characters, thinking about the story. And as Charlie mentioned, what's the best choice here? The hell with, like, you know, oh, I didn't get this thing I wrote, you know, got changed. Who cares? What is best for the story? Now, sometimes we both believe we know what's best, and then that's like, you know, that's never fun. But at the end, at least we know that it's coming from a place where we just think that's what's best for the story. And thank God, you know, we work in a way where we know it's not about ego, and we also work with other people. Our director, Sean Negoshian, also does not work from a place of ego.
Quarter Greek, by the way, should be noted. Quarter Greek from
Wow.
Thessaloniki. Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry, I did not to interrupt, bro, but
Awesome.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it. You know, he's also best idea wins. So, you know, whatever decision we make, it's a decision that's made, you know, between all of us, and that you know, also it doesn't make the editor, you know, contributes. Greg Lewis, you know, whoever's, you know, in the office at the time, whoever has the best idea, and we found that ends up being what's best for the show. And that's at the end of the day what we want, what matters to us most.
And so we're knee deep on writing season 2. We're very happy with how the scripts are turning out so far. You know, that's our focus. And then, you know, hopefully another season. And then, you know, Netflix has been very good to us. We have another idea that we hope to develop there. And to be honest, you know, that's our focus. You know, we still have 2 other feature projects that we're trying to put together. And that's always, you know, we'll be there. But right now, 100% of our focus is just on the show. And once we get the scripts written, then, you know, you can kind of look, you know, at other things. But until that's done, we believe just one project at a time. When we can. There are times where that's not possible. But like when we wrote the first season, we just told our manager and our agent, like, we're unavailable, doesn't matter who calls, or we're just going to be writing. And that's what we're doing here now too for season 2. But that's a joy. We love, and we're grateful that we have this opportunity to just focus, you know, on these scripts. And,
Blood of Zeus was the first project that we had where we worked on it from inception of idea all the way to the very, very end. You know, we got sole credit on Immortals, but we did get rewritten by 2 writers. We, you know, got rewritten on Death Note, and we shared credit with Jeremy Slater. So, you know, it was very gratifying to be working on something. For better or for worse, this was the story that we wanted to tell, and we told it the way we wanted to tell, and we didn't get rewritten. And you know, besides that, it was just fun to work in this format, you know, to work in that longer format, and, you know, stay with a character for you know, a while longer than what's afforded in movies. So it was just a real pleasure, creatively and professionally.
Well, it's so inspiring to talk with you both and learn more about the series, your background. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And go check out Blood of Zeus on Netflix if you haven't already seen it. Fantastic series about the very start of Greek history, Greek mythology. Thank you both again so much for being with us, Charlie and Vlas.
Absolutely. We want to thank our families. We want to thank our mom, and we want to thank, you know, everyone that watched.
Our wives for putting up with us.
Our wives, big time. I feel so bad for both of them because it's a challenge. And then also too, one of the things I just like to mention, when we spoke to a reporter in Greece, and she had mentioned just how much, you know, she enjoyed the show, and what it meant to her and to a lot of the Greeks that she knew, and how proud and happy they were. And that made us so happy. You know, that was probably one of the happiest moments we've had on this journey. So we're very proud to be Greeks. We're proud when the Greeks, you know, enjoy it and take pride in the show.
And we always tell fans, you know, listen, if you love this, read more Greek mythology. And if you ever get a chance, go to Greece, because you will not regret it. It is amazing. And hopefully we'll all be back there sometime soon once all this madness is over.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.